Welcome. I'm Beth Powell with the Education Committee. Welcome to today's presentation. This is a hybrid class. We've got about 20 folks in the room here at the RVA office, and everybody else is via Zoom. So welcome, Zoom land. For those of you on Zoom, please remain muted. We will have time for questions, and if you want to text something to Laura, she'll be sure and ask your question as well. We're recording today's class, and we will make it available for about 30 days. So if you want to refresh yourself after this, it will be posted. We'll be sending out a survey as well. And that survey will be, the survey is really important to us. That helps us to know what kind of classes you'd like to see. We'd like to know your input on today's class. Helps us to plan classes over the next year. Before we get started, I want to let you know about some other events. On May 16th and 17th, we have our annual pet food drive, and that is for both the SPCA and Angels of Assisi. So it'll be a drive-through. You can come and drop off pet food on the 16th and 17th of May. Then on Friday the 19th, we have the spring golf tournament at Ashley Plantation. And our next class will be Wednesday, June 14th, and that'll be Speaker Neil Holthauser of AEP. And he's going to be talking about shoreline management plan and navigating the dock process. So for today's class, let me introduce our first speaker, who is Curtis Burchett. Curtis has been licensed since 2002, and he's owner partner at MKB Realtors. Our second speaker is Jay Kilby, and he's been licensed since 2006. He's licensed with RE/MAX All-Stars, and he serves as RVAR's president-elect. So thank you, Curtis.
I'm just getting to the share screen.
Go and get it done.
Okay.
Going to be should be it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today's topic that we're going to talk about is managing seller expectations in this marketplace. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about managing many people's expectations, including realtor expectations. How many in here are first year in the business by a show of hands? How many are less than 5 years in the business by a show of hands? And the rest are more than 5 years. So, knock this mic off. There we go. So the marketplace that we're in now is dramatically different than the marketplace when I started in 2002, and we've seen changes. One of the things that has not changed is, as realtors, we need to work together. Clients will come and clients will go, but good realtors will be there consistently. And in this marketplace, in particular, the last couple of years, I've noticed that when you get a listing, quite often you're in a competitive bid situation. And I have seen on social media, and I've seen a lot of places, and I've had a lot of conversation with other agents about the buyer's agent just wanting to know what's going on. You know, and the listing agent being in a position of having multiple offers and obviously representing, have a fiduciary responsibility to their seller. But I think you also have a responsibility to your other agents to let them know what's going on there. I know I personally have had situations where I've made an offer and it wasn't accepted, and I never got any explanation, any details about what's going on. Every time I go on a listing presentation or work with a buyer, if I'm not successful, one of the first things I do is I try to find out why. I learn more from my failures than I do from my success. So my request to the Realtor Association would be, and fellow realtors, we're all partners in this. There's been some that have done some great things where if there were 6, 7, 8 bids, they would send out a mass text or a mass email to all the agents that submitted offers with not the details of the specific, but there were 6 offers above asking price. There were 2 cash, there were 2 conventional, blah, 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 blah. But then you understand, because not only do you need to be educated, but your buyers need to be educated. And the only way you can educate them, other than say you didn't get it, is here's why. So anyway, a little bit of a soapbox statement I wanted to make before we get started there. So we're going to talk about managing seller expectations in today's market. And also I'm going to show you a listing presentation I do. So whenever I go on a listing presentation, the first thing that I do is I show them what's going on in the marketplace broadly. I look at what's going on in the Roanoke Valley. And in this case, this is a particular house in Botetourt that I sold last year, and I'm going to show you the market analysis I use for that. And then what's going to be very unique for some of you that are newer to the business, this is a situation where the seller reached out to me in 2014 and said, I'd like for you to do a market analysis for me. He and his wife was ill, and he said, we're thinking about selling. So I did a market analysis for him, and I saved it. Then he called me last year, his wife had passed, and he asked me to sell his house. So I'm going to show you the statistical market analysis that I did in 2014 and the difference between today to illustrate the market conditions. Many of you have heard about, the good old days that old folks like me will say, we used to have 3,000 houses. We used to have this, a ton of inventory. And now the number one complaint I hear from realtors is we don't have anything to sell. We don't have any inventory. So this too will change, but it's a matter of managing your seller's expectations about what's going on in today's market so that they know what to expect during the listing process and during the contract process. So this first slide that I have up here is January of 2014. It was actually January 24th, 2014. And this is the Roanoke Valley. So this is our entirety of our market. And back then, if you look, there were 3,024 active listings. I see some people in here. I see Chris. Some of us are shaking our heads and saying, yeah, we remember those days. This was in 2014. And when you do your math, and the way I do it is I take those 4,303 closed listings from January 24th, 2013 to January 24th, 2014. Divide that number by 12 and divide it into the active inventory, and it tells you it's an 8.4 month supply of inventory. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what does that mean to you? The experts, whoever they may be, tell us that if there's a 0 to 3 month supply of inventory, it's considered a seller's market. If there's a 3 to 6 month amount of inventory, it's what we call a balanced market. It's that great market that we all love. It's equal market. It's good for sellers. It's good for buyers. And I have a lot of people approach me on the street and all the time and say, you must love being a realtor right now. Everything's selling way above asking price and, and all that stuff. And I'm like, there's 2 parties to every transaction. And every transaction that we do, there's one party that generally, even if they win, they're still somewhat disappointed because they feel like they overpaid. So anyway, a little bit of a soapbox. So 8.4 months supply of inventory in the marketplace in 2014. If we fast forward, this is not sliding for me.
Try it again.
There we go. Now this is out of order. All right, so I'm going to scroll through here and where's my arb? All right, I'm going to tell you it's not there. I don't know why it didn't come in, but anyway. I ran a market analysis yesterday, and I think there's just one screen that did not transfer over.
Okay.
As of yesterday at 10:45 a.m., there were 522 houses on the market. But 5,235 that sold over the last 12 months tells us there's a 1.2 month supply of inventory. Not telling anything that all of y'all don't know. But as agents, we need to tell our sellers what's going on in the marketplace so they can understand. And it's different. Is it a great seller's market in every price point and in every facet of our market? No. The higher the price point, it's starting to slow down a little bit. I'm personally seeing in the lower price points in the entry level, I feel sorry for our first-time home buyers right now. Because they literally, I had a buyer that I worked with last year that wrote 13 offers on houses before she finally got one. And she called me and she said, I've had a foreclosure before in 2008, and I made an emotional bad decision. And she said, don't let me make another bad decision. And we wrote offers on 12 houses before we finally got one on the 13th. And about half of those, she said, I'll go higher. And I said, that's too high. Don't go too high because you'll be too far upside down on that house. Eventually, I'm a huge believer in fate. What's meant to be will happen. And if you have your client's interest at heart, the right house will happen at the right price at the right time. And the 13th house that we wrote an offer on is the one she got, and she loves it and thinks it's the best house for her. So always have your client's interest at heart. All right, so the second screen that you see up here is in 2014, and I can scroll one more, there we go. We have Botetourt. In 2014, there were 248 houses for sale. 376 had sold. Now the average sales price, and we'll back up just a minute. In 2014, there's my RVAR screen, there it is. In 2014, 194,000 was the average sales price in the Roanoke Valley. In 2023, the average sales price is 323,000. That's a 67% increase in value in 9 years. Is real estate a good investment? Yes. All right, so Botetourt in 2014, a 7.9 month supply of inventory, 222,000 was the average sale price. Currently, the average sales price is 356,000, and there's a 1.1 month supply of inventory. Now, when I did my market analysis for this particular house that I'm going to show you, in 2014, I had determined, based on everything I looked at, this house was going to be somewhere between 300,000 and 400,000. So the next thing that I do, and when I do these statistical market analysis, I do the Roanoke Valley, then I'm going to do Botetourt, and then I'm going to zero down into a price point, a neighborhood, or a specific style and criteria that will give us a range of value for that property. As buyers agents, those of us that have been around for a while, we know that certain neighborhoods are in certain ballpark price ranges, things like that. And if it's outside the range, it's going to take longer to sell, and people aren't going to show it. So you need to find that sweet spot. I have a philosophy when it comes to pricing a house. I call it the 3 bears philosophy of pricing a house. I don't want to be too hot. I don't want to be too cold. I want to be just right. Try to find that number that's in the middle there. So if you look in Botetourt at 350 plus, in 2014, there was a 15.6 month supply of inventory, 74 houses active, and only 57 had sold in the prior 12 months. You're trying to sell a house in 2014 in this price point, was it a great time? No. If you go back to Botetourt in 2000, currently, there's a 1.5 month supply of inventory. The average sales price in 2014 was $429 above 350. The average sales price is $509 currently. Average days on the market in the Roanoke Valley is in the 20s. Back in 2014, we were 129 days in the 350 plus price range. So what you're doing is you're managing expectations, and this presentation can be used whether it's a buyer's market, a seller's market, or a balanced market. It really doesn't matter, you know. So as we go through, so then once we narrowed it down, we determined that this house was going to be somewhere between 300 and 400. So in 2014, there was an 11.2 month supply of inventory, 43 active, 46 sold. Fast forward to current, and there are 7 active listings currently on the market, and there were 100 that have sold. There's a 0.8 month supply of inventory. Now, those last 2 screens demonstrated something to you. The higher the price point, the softer the market is in theory and in reality. So, you know, when people ask you, how's the market? It is a strong seller's market, but it depends. The National Association of Realtors say that every market is local. Well, every local market is local. And what I mean by that is hyper-local. You need to compare apples to apples. If you're looking at a house in Botetourt, don't pull comps in Roanoke County or Roanoke City. So, All right, so this market plan this is a copy of the market plan that I used for my listing presentation. Laura is going to send a copy to everybody online and everybody in class of this. If you have questions, my contact information here is on the cover page. I'm happy to share it with you, show you how I use it. I don't think there's any secrets as a realtor association that are proprietary to MKB or RE/MAX or anybody else. As I started this conversation, we are all realtors, and we need to work together for the betterment of the association and the betterment of our community. So the more we can share, the better off we will all be. So first page is just simply an action plan. I used my iPhone, take a picture of the house, Microsoft Word document, create a cover page. And the listing presentation, when I present it to the client, is like this. It's in a bound folder. I take a copy with me. Some of you younger folks and some of you more technologically advanced will put this on an iPad or a laptop and scroll through. I'm still old school. I'm still very tactile. I like to have paper. So first page. So we're going to scroll through the listing presentation. Jay, quit working there a minute.
Gotcha.
There we go. As I'm sitting with my seller, I give them a copy of this. The first thing that I tell my seller is, I want you to pretend I'm a Catholic school teacher and that I've got about a 5 or 6 foot ruler here. And if I see you skipping ahead, I'm going to smack your hand. And they usually laugh a little bit. But I want to go page by page with them. And I promise them that I'm not going to read this to them. I'm just going to illustrate the highlights that I think are important. And I'm going to leave this with them so they can read it themselves if they want to. First page, important message about the value of your home. This is a long-winded way of saying 2 things. 1, is now a good time to sell your house? And 2, who's going to be the best realtor to help you do this? Little secret. Every time I go on a listing presentation, I encourage my sellers to get 2 or 3 opinions. You should get information. And if you're scared of competition, well, you're in the wrong business. There's almost 1,500 of us out there, and there's 500 listings. So there's going to be competition. So second page, value is in the eye of the beholder. Whether you're a lender or a tax appraiser or assessor, different people look at the same house in different ways. This is usually meant to solicit a little bit of a laugh. They'll laugh about the tax assessor as a hole in the ground, things like that. Then the next page, what is the best price obtainable for your property? And this is a page that I spend a little bit of time on and really want to highlight the first couple points. I personally do not like to ask the seller what they think the value of their house is until after I provided a market analysis. Now, I've learned over the years that if I come in with a number, if my number is higher than theirs, and when I ask afterwards, well, what were you thinking? Magically, they say, your number is what we were thinking. Well, I'll give you a little secret, a little trick that you can do to avoid that. Walk in and say, my number is on paper, and I'm going to have it here in about 5 or 10 minutes. Here's a little slip of paper. I want you to write down what you think the value is and turn it upside down. I don't want to see it. And then after you give your numbers, ask them to turn it over. And that way you'll find out whether your number was truly what they were thinking or not. So one, that what you paid for when you bought the house or built the house has nothing to do with today's value. I had people that bought houses in 06, 07 and tried to sell them in 12 and 13. And they sold them for less than they paid for them. Alexander Boone and Steve Strauss have been building houses. They're not currently, Alexander still is, Steve's out of the business. But I remember negotiating in 06, 07 with Alexander one time. And he said, no one's ever bought one of our houses. And when they sold it, lost money. And prior to 2008, I think he could legitimately say that. After 2008, nobody could legitimately say, I'm not trying to call Alexander out, but that's just the reality. In our lifetime, our parents, unless you destroyed a house or tore it up, if you bought a house, it appreciated in value. Even if you just did simple maintenance, it appreciated in value. So 2008 was a seminal time in our lifetime. It's really the first time ever that I'm aware of that real estate values actually went backwards in the bottom market. And it took a long time to recover. And then secondly, the cash proceeds that you want or need from the sale of your house. I've yet to have a buyer come up to me and say, you know what, I think Karen is the nicest person in the whole world. And I think the value is $300,000, but she needs $350,000 and I'm gonna give it to her just because I love Karen. I've never had a buyer do that. And you're probably not going to have a buyer do that. So that's why I don't ask up front what they think the value is. Now, a lot of times you're going to get objections. After you present your number, if it's lower than what they were thinking, you need to find out why. And if they say, well, the house I was going to buy in Florida when I moved to Florida is 400, and you're telling me 350, and I need 400 out of this one to buy in Florida. But does that have anything to do with price of tea in China and Roanoke? It has nothing to do with that. So you need to eliminate or at least address those objections up front. And then lastly, what I or another real estate professional tell you based on opinion. Opinions, we all have them. They're like certain body parts, unless it's backed up by statistical data. And my market analysis is backed up by statistical data. So next page, factors that influence the value of your house. Location, location, location. We've all heard about location, being the number one deciding factor, and the many factors, and you need to be prepared. I do a two-step listing presentation. So I've already been to the house. I've already taken my notes. I already know the positives. I already know the negatives. And at this point, you need to be prepared to tell your seller, you have a wonderful kitchen and you have a open floor plan, but you have not a good backyard. You don't have any covered parking, or you do have great covered parking. Point out the positives and the negatives of their situation in a gentle but direct way, because the buyers are going to present it in a direct way. So you need to be prepared for that. Market conditions. Well, we've already addressed market conditions with our statistical market analysis up front. Competition. We're going to talk a little bit about that. In today's market, there really isn't a whole lot of competition. Your competition is really going to be what's sold, not what's on the market, because you need to look at what's sold to determine what the market is willing to bear. Listing price, you want to hit that sweet spot. Terms offered, I'm not a fan of offering allowances up front. Today's buyer wants a move-in ready house. So if it needs new carpet or it needs new paint, you're better off to do it than to offer an allowance up front. In a normal market, which we're not in, but in a normal market, they're going to ask for the allowance and try to negotiate price. We are realtors. Negotiate. Be your client's representative, and they represent their interest. Condition of the property. Well, I've had many people I've met with say, I want to put this house on the market tomorrow. Nope, we're not ready yet. We got a lot of things we need to do. I've only paid to stage professionally one house in 23 years. However, I've staged every house that I've ever sold with their stuff. And what I do is I walk through and I say, first off, you're going to move, correct? I'm here because you want to move. Is there anything in this house that's not going to make the move with you? And they said, well, yeah, that couch, we've been dying to get rid of. Well, get rid of it now. Go ahead and declutter and depersonalize the house before you list the house, because we're going to sell the house. And then you work with what they have and minimize, less is more, things like that. We won't get into great detail of that, but spend some time up front with them. It's better to spend a week or 2 weeks getting it ready so that when it hits the market, because I'm going to let you a little secret, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's a pain in the butt to sell your house. You have people coming and going. In this market, the first day, if it's priced appropriately, you're going to have 6, 8, 10, 12 showings. And you're going to be like, I can't even get back in my house to put my kids to bed. So the better job you do, the shorter the pain, because you'll sell quicker if you spend some time up front getting it ready. Promotion, that's my job. Ease of showing. In this market, sellers feel like they hold control of the cards, and they do control most of them. And I've had sellers say, I'm going to do it by appointment basis only, and I'm going to do it between 3 and 3:15 on Tuesday and 1 and 1:15 on Thursday, and the rest of the week I'm not going to show it. I'm exaggerating there a little bit. If you want to sell your house, make it available. Don't make us jump through hoops as buyers, agents, and people. If need be, go stay with your in-laws, go on vacation, go somewhere, go out of the house for the first weekend. So, all right, next page. This is 2014 market analysis that I did. Back then, it was a buyer's market. Currently, it's a seller's market. Mortgage rates then were increasing. Right now, they're kind of flat. They've kind of stabilized where they are. Now, have a lot of people that in today's market say, I don't want to buy because I'm not going to do 6.5 or 7% or 6% interest rate. I can't do that. That's just exorbitant. 1990, I bought my first house and it was 9%, and I went, yes. Because the 80s were 10, 12, 15%. Some of us remember that. There's a little saying that numerous people have told me, and I use it quite often. date the interest rate, marry the house. You can refinance the interest rate. And interest rates will come back down. I don't know that we're going to see threes again. I think we'll see 4s and 5s again in the very near future. Seasonal factor. I tell my wife every year, March 1st, I'll see her in October. That is the season. So you need to tell them if they're thinking about listing their house in November or December, well, that's probably the low season. January, February is average. March through October, March through September is the peak season. So you need to educate them about that. The risk of overpricing. This is a long-winded way of saying, try to hit that sweet spot so that a buyer walks in and says, I need to jump today, as opposed to being the buyer that walks in and says, I think this house is worth $350 and they're asking $450. I'm gonna let them cook for a little while. I'm gonna let them sweat for a while. And if it's still there when the price comes down, maybe I'll jump. You want to put it at a price point that the buyer feels like they need to jump right away, because if they don't, there's going to be 3 others or 12 others. Currently for sale. This is where I try to find 3 houses that are comparable. So as an example, my house is a colonial. It's a 1.5 story out in Burchett. I think if I remember correctly, 4 bedrooms, 5.5 baths, about an acre and a quarter land, 2-car attached garage. So I'm trying to find out in Burchett similar style colonials, 2 stories, 1.5 stories. If I'm looking at a split foyer, I want to look at split foyers or split levels. You need to know the difference between split foyers and split levels. Big difference, but most people don't know that. A lot of buyers don't know that. If you're looking at ranches, you need to know whether you got basements or not, whether you got garage attachments. And there's a Microsoft Excel sheet that generally generates the most questions. People ask me, how do you come up with those adjustments? And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. The first 3 pages here are houses. Now, I'm just going to illustrate as an example. This first house had been on the market for 413 days.
It was new construction.
New construction, yep.
I had it
And yeah, and I didn't even think about it. Jay, this was one of yours there. But if we're in Burchett, there's a good chance there is going to be some of yours. The next one was one of Callie's. It had been on the market for 439 days. And then we had one that was 87 days, and it was a new kid on the block. I had a realtor last year walk into my office that was only in the business about less than 4 years and had only experienced the market that we've experienced over the last 3 or 4 years. And the house had been on the market for 12 days. And she walked in, she was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with my house? Is my house ugly? It's been 12 days and it hadn't sold yet. Back then, the average days on the market were 60 to 90 days. I currently have in my supply closet 65 lock boxes. Anybody want to buy a lock box? You know, we don't need that many lock boxes. I used to have 20 to 40 listings at any given time. You know, and now, I've died to have. In a seller's market, he, she that has the listings gets the gold. In a buyer's market, he, she that has the listings pays the gold. So you just got to adjust to the marketplace. But anyway, so then where I spend the meat of my time is on the ones that have sold. So as an example, I'm not going to go into great detail about these, but I'm going to get to the Excel spreadsheet and show you how these 3 houses that have sold that are comparable in style to the one I want to list and how they are different or the same. So as an example, we got one on Chesney, we got one on Piper Glen, we got one on Thornblade, a new construction. This is my Excel spreadsheet. On the left-hand column, 80 Foxcroft is the basic details, 3,589 finished square feet, 4 bedrooms, 5.5 baths, 2-car attached garage, and it was built in 2000. Those are the basics that I always try to look at on every house. Then I put the 3 houses that have sold, and I start making adjustments based on subjective adjustments, based on what I think and what I've experienced that people are willing to pay for more square footage or less square footage. An attached garage versus no garage, an attached garage versus an under garage, a basement finished versus unfinished. So I'm gonna go over the adjustments I made on this particular house. And then these are things that as a buyer's agent and as a buyer would make a difference to you. It can't, you know, it shouldn't be that one's got brown color and one's got gray color. That's really not going to make a difference. Now, if it's got pink purple polka dot, say that fast 3 times, painting, well, that will make a difference. So you better make an adjustment for painting because the one that sold had neutral colors, yours doesn't. or you better paint it. But anyway, Chesney had 252 more finished square feet than Foxcroft. It was all in the basement. Well, previously finished basement square footage, I will use anywhere in the entry level, $10 up to about $40 per finished square foot. In other words, the basement's already been poured, it's already there. In order to finish it, you can finish it, depends on the quality of the higher the quality, the better. But in this case, they were all decent, but they weren't anything outstanding. So I used, in this case, $20 per square foot, saying if it had 252 less square feet, it would have sold for $5,040 less. Then this particular house had 3 full baths. My house has 5.5. In this price point, I was using $3,000 for a full bath and $1,500 for a half bath. The first bath, the master bath, is the most expensive bath, but then the second, third, fourth, fifth baths are generally relatively inexpensive. So $3,000 as an adjustment factor for a full $1,500. So we added $7,500, and if it had 5.5 baths, 2.5 more baths, it would sold $7,500 more. An appraiser taught me this thing that they do. They'll make an adjustment for age. So I generally, if they're in a similar age range, I'll make $1,000 per year for the age of the house. The older the house, the more the likelihood that they're going to need new heating, new roof, new this, new that, than a newer house. So in this case, it was 1,000. It was 1 year old, 1 year newer. So we subtracted $1,000. And then in this case, Chesney had a detached garage. Our house has an attached garage. Made a $10,000 adjustment for a 2-car detached versus a 2-car attached. If it's a 2-car under versus a 2-car attached, I'd probably make the same $10,000 adjustment. If it's a 2-car attached versus no garage, I'd make about a $20,000 adjustment. 1 car versus 2-car, you can play with the numbers and you work with those, but those are kind of the adjustments. So this house on Chesney sold for $345. After we make the adjustments of $11,000, it might sell in the range of $356. Do the same thing on Piper Glen, 331 more or less square feet. So we add 6,620 for more square footage. We had $5,000 because they only had 3 bedrooms. We have 4. I do $5,000 for the first bedroom up to 4, and then I do about $2,500 for the 5th and 6th, because the 5th and 6th is not as important as the having 4. Then $6,000 for the age, or I beg your pardon, for the baths, 3.5 versus 5.5. $3,000 adjustment for the age. It sold at $372. We might sell at $387, in that range. Then we do the same thing on Thornblade, and on Thornblade, we made several adjustments. Square footage. Thornblade did not have a finished basement, so 1,069 finished in the basement. We used 21,000. In today's world, it'll cost you more than that. I'm building a house, so I can tell you it'll cost you more than that. But if it's previously, Foxcroft was previously owned and previously lived in, so you're not going to get today's top dollar for that. Then we made an adjustment for the square footage, made an adjustment for 2.5 baths versus 5.5, $13,000 adjustment for the age, $10,000 adjustment for the detached garage on Thornblade, and I had to go back and look at that, but I'm assuming it did at that point. And then I also made, this house sold at $391. People will pay a premium for brand new construction. I use anywhere from 5 to 10% adjustment. In this case, I use 10% adjustment factor for brand new. People would prefer to have their house as opposed to your house whenever possible. So this house sold at $391. We might sell in the $379 range. So you see how we've painted a picture in the $356 to $387 range. And then back then in 2014, the tax assessment played more of a role than it does now. It's a really moving target. But I looked at the tax assessment currently was $285 in 2014, 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. And then on the next page, this is where I told them the anticipated sell range is between $385 and $369. Now, at this point, it's when I shut up a little bit. And I look at the seller and I'm reading body language. And if I can't read the body language, then I ask, Lynn, what did you think about this? And if I'm seeing Lynn doing this, then I know that Lynn was thinking higher than I'm thinking. If I see Lynn going, yes, then I know that Lynn's, and if I do that little trick where I've asked Lynn to write her number down in advance, I know that I'm getting an honest answer. So I do that more often than not now. I give them a range of value. My range of value is a 4% swing between the high end and the low end. And how I arrive at that, I've been in the business for almost 23 years. My average listed sales price is a little bit under 3%. Market averages in that period of time is between 4 and 5%. So I just split the difference at a 4%. And I say the best case scenario is 385, worst case is 369.5, 4% lower. And then I say, what do you think? Invariably, almost every seller says, well, I like the 385. You notice I don't have a recommended list price there. I've had that rare situation where somebody said, you know what, I really want to get rid of this. Let's go 369. Let's go 350. And those you go like, you sure about that? Did I hear that correctly? Most of them want to go 385 or want to go higher. And when they want to go higher, that's where you've already dealt with the objections and you need to ask why. Well, I was thinking, the neighbor's house sold for 400, or this house on one of the comps that you used, if you use the right comps, sold for a higher number. Well, here's why. You've already made the adjustments. It's brand new. It has more upgrades than you do, blah, 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 blah. And you need to be prepared to answer those objections up front. I can't tell you how many times that I've been in a competitive situation and I wasn't the highest number, but I got the listing because I had detailed information to designate. And sellers want realism. They really want to be told the truth. Now, do they not like to hear 400 as opposed to 385? Who doesn't? But if 400 is not legitimate, after 3 to 6 months, they're not going to like me anymore. And they're not going to do repeat and referral business with me because it's either not going to sell, or if it does sell, they didn't have a great experience. So I give them the list price. Then the next thing that I do, Jay, it froze up on me again. Next thing I do is I put together net sheets. And these are the basic nets that at 385 or 369, you're gonna have about $100 for a settlement agent, $100 for a deed prep. In the old days, when the seller used to do the termite inspections or the wood destroying organism reports, as we call them, it was about $100. In today's market, the buyer does all the inspections for the most part, so you could take that away. Miscellaneous, overnight payoffs, notary public, things like that. I always put a couple $100 in there. If I'm in an HOA, I'll put about $500 there because they're going to charge you about $300 for an HOA packet, which they just punch a button and send to you. But anyway, I won't get into that, but I could go on about that. Grantor's tax is $1 per thousand of the sales price or the tax assessment, whichever is higher. In this case, the tax assessment was $285. This is $385. This happens to be on well and septic. So once again, if the buyer is doing the well and septic, you don't have to put it there, but $75 for a water test and $75 for a visual inspection of the septic field. If the seller is doing it, if the buyer is doing it, you can take that away. And then the brokerage is 6%. Now, I keep on moving, but I do explain that it's not 6% for me. It is 6% to MKB, and we cooperate with all of the other brokers out there, and that's 3% for me and 3% for the other agent. And that usually eliminates a lot of those conversations about commission activities, as I like to call them. So your known expenses are going to be $24,135 at 385. That leaves you $360,865. There are 3 areas that are unknown, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, every time you sell a house: home inspection, wood destroying organisms, and radon gas. I'm not going to explain to you all of that, but you need to explain to them the process on that and how that process is going to play out and what those potential liabilities could be. And they need to be prepared for that. And then subtract whatever their payoff on the house. If they owe it free and clear, then this is their number. But I always tell them estimate, depending on the condition of the house, anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000, depending on what they want to do there. And then I give them worst case. And I always tell every seller, I want you to plan on 369 as the number. Because then when I sell at 385 or 380, you're happy. If you plan on 385 and I sell at 380, you're not happy. So I always try to manage expectations of the seller at 369. Next page, how do buyers hear about the property? Well, this goes into how do we attract buyers? The internet. The internet is the end all be all. It's got all that information. Today's buyers know more about properties than ever before. Many of you that have been in the business for a good while know that we used to carry these books around and we were under threat of death if we shared them with our buyers. And you can look at it, but you can't take it home with you, But now they got everything that's out there. So if your buyer's going to hear about it on the internet, the next source is other realtors. You know, they hear about their next house from their realtor, yard signs, friends, neighbors, newspaper, real estate publications, open houses. Now, doesn't mean we don't do open houses. A lot of agents ask me, the newer agents will ask me how, you know, what was your key to success? And I say, well, number one, hard work. Number two, answering the phone. But probably the biggest key, my first year in the business, I did open houses 48 out of 52 Sundays. So open houses are still a great way to generate business for you. And it appeases your seller to a certain degree. Once again, managing those expectations with them. There's a list of things about what we do. Each of your individual companies can put together your marketing plan and some of the things that you do. When a buyer is found for your property, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, there's a couple promises I make you. My little go-to line is, when I was in high school, I was tall, skinny, and shy. Now I'm just tall. I will, if I get an offer at 8 o'clock on Friday night, I'm gonna ask to meet with you at 8:30 on Friday night. And I'm gonna present the offer and I'm gonna come with an opinion. If we have multiple offers, we're going to talk about a strategy. As an example, in this market, when I have a property that I think is going to be a hot property, I will tell my sellers, okay, we're going to list it on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Now, people say, why Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday? I know a lot of people list on Friday. Friday doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't give an appropriate amount of time for buyers to make plans to see your house that weekend. Monday is 6 days away from Saturday. Friday is only one day. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are, in my opinion, the optimal time to list a house. And if I think it's going to be a competitive bid situation, what I tell my sellers, and I tell every agent that calls me, we're planning on reviewing offers Sunday evening after the open house at 6 o'clock, unless we receive something we just can't say no to. And then I also, if any of you have ever worked with me, I promise if I get something I can't say no to, I will reach out to the agents that have made an offer and say, hey, we're getting ready. I know I told you Sunday, but we're getting ready to accept something. Is there any changes you want to make? Once again, communicate with your fellow agents out there so they can, because the worst thing in the world is, as an agent, is for your buyer to call you and say, well, I would have went higher if you'd let me know. So anyway, so when a buyer is found for your property, I don't like letting buyers sleep on it. Now in this market, not as big of a deal as it used to be. When you get back in a buyer's market, you let a buyer sleep on it, they're going to think, well, there's 12 other houses. You better present that night. I got a contract one night on Saturday night at 7 o'clock, and I called the seller and I said, I've got an offer. It's a great offer. It's almost full price. And it was in the range she had told me she would accept. And I said, I can meet you in 30 minutes, 45. She said, no, I got a date. I'm going to watch a movie tonight. And I said, got to offer $850,000. And I don't want to let the buyer sleep on it. And she said, well, I got a date. I had recent divorcee and she was going on a date. And I said, what time's your movie over? She said 11:30. I met her at midnight. We signed the contract. Now, that buyer could have slept on it in that marketplace and got cold feet. And how bad would I feel? How bad would the seller feel if I didn't push them to do that? Get ready for action. These are all just some bullet points. All of you have this, but less is more. Don't have the TV on. I had a buyer one time who had a handicapped child and was going to live with the mom and dad forever. And they were very limited geographically and financially where they could live. And we looked at everything in their price point. And there's one house that I thought was perfect for them twice. And they kept saying no. And finally I said, why do you not like that house? And they said, I don't know, it's just not right. I said, no, I'm not going to let you off that easy. Why do you not like that house? And the only thing they could come up with is smelled like mothballs. It smelled like grandma's house, which to them, the nose, by the way, this was a result of a negotiation with another realtor over a contract. The nose was sending a message to the brain to not like this house, and they didn't even recognize it. So I told them, I said, tell you what, I'm going to take you back to the house. And I want you to close your nose and open your eyes. No, we don't need to see that house again. No. I said, no, appease me. I actually put bobby pins on the nose. Did you not? And they came back and they said, we love this house. And they bought the house and they've been there for about 10 years now, and it's perfect for them. But the nose, so in other words, what I'm saying is, if there's an objection that you can see, you can touch, you can smell, you can feel, and you can eliminate it or minimize it, do it so that the buyer will not face that objection. Last page. I am ready to go to work for you. Number one reason that most realtors don't get the listing is they don't ask for the business. My closing presentation, and you need to develop your own. Years ago, I had a gentleman call on me who was a financial planner. And if any of you are financial planners in this room, I apologize in advance. But I met with him because he was referred by somebody I respected. And at the end of his presentation, he stuck his head and his nose up here and he said, I am a financial planner and I'm not a salesperson and I'm not going to ask for your business. I have never, ever done business with that individual. Mr. and Ms. Seller, I am a realtor. I'm incredibly proud to be a realtor, and I am 100% convinced I can sell you a house. When can we get started? Ask for the business. And then if there's objections, you know, if they say, well, I'm meeting with 2 or 3 other realtors, well, that's hard to overcome. But if they need to sleep on it, well, why? Most people sleep on it thinking of reasons not to do it. Strike while the iron is hot. Don't take no lightly. The human being is conditioned to say no 7 times for every time they say yes. It's just conditioned. You walk into a store to go buy a new pair of jeans or a new pair of shoes, and somebody walks up to you and says, can I help you? What's your first response? No, I'm just looking. Even though you're there to buy something. It's just human being, it's human nature. So don't let them off that easy. Don't let them just say no. If they say no, why do you say no? What do I need to do to make this happen today? All right. Any questions? I know at the end of the class, I think we're going to take some class, but Jay's going to do it, and then we'll both stick around for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Curtis. That was really, really inspiring. A lot of detail in that. Let's see here. I'm gonna hit the stop share button for just a hot second while I get set up. I'm doing the more technical side of this thing. I'm gonna show you some tips and tricks from within the MLS and within Flex, the tools that are provided for you. I would tell you I'm Mac Westland, but he's off playing G.I. Joe and was supposed to be the teacher of this originally. So I'm filling in for him. Hope to give you a few tips and tricks. Let's see here. All right, I think we are ready. Okay. All right, so this is just a generic test page for the MLS. So it's all blank. Ignore where we are on that. I'll go through just to get everybody to the point where we're all looking at somewhat of the same thing. Keep in mind this video will be available after the class, so you can always come back and refer to where we are to get to some of these menu items. But I'm going to start here. If you look, just so everybody's on the same page, there's several different views you can choose from within Flex. If you haven't done that, you can customize your homepage. The MLS is the standard one from Flex MLS. Classic was the one that most matched up with like pre-2014 changes, I think it was. And then there's the home screen. So all they do, just to show you, it just changes your layout. But in case you need to do that, that's the way to do it. The reason I bring that up is just making sure when you're lining up with a video to make sure you can get to this first page. When you click menu within the MLS, we're going to look at 2 different things and styles of looking at statistical data and how to get to it. So call it the background work that Curtis did in his presentation. I'm going to show you how to get to that information. When you click menu, a lot of people don't realize this, you can customize your toolbar within Flex MLS. Your toolbar is here to the right of menu. And if you click on menu and scroll out beside any of these items and hit the star button, if you'll watch over here beside rosters, when I hit a star on any of them, it populates that to your toolbar. So you can get to all of your different fields and customize it there. Partially, I set this up prior to the class, went down to the statistics categories and showed that you can throw them on the toolbar if this is something you use pretty frequently. So within the statistics, there's several subcategories, and then there's also data within listings. So we're going to look at the listings here. So after a listing presentation, you've got it on the market. We can go in and show you how to find and access the internal MLS data, which is the purest form of data that we can get, the most least skewed of all the information. So statistics would be your production. This is a test account, so there's no listings or anything in here to populate other than just generalized market data. I'm going to switch over when we need to go to a listing. But market summary is the first for what we're looking at. And Curtis had generated a lot of these back in 2014 with his data. They've changed a little bit in how they present it. They've gone more to Flex, being they have gone more to graphs and charts as opposed to tables for your data. Both of them are available, and I'll show you how to get to it. So this is just your generalized market summary. So if anybody clicks this, the first click, market summary is going to show you an active snapshot of today's market as presented. You can change the data around. I'm going to start down here at the tables or the charts, and then I'm going to come up here and show you how we can do it. So this is automatically defaults to residential property. If you click here on the question mark at the top right-hand corner of each graph, it will show you what each of these fields actually mean. So the definition behind the data. It'll give you each individual statistical category down here at the bottom and show you how to arrive at it. If you hit the wrench for settings, you can customize it individually in a different way, adding something, taking it away. Say solds aren't relevant to what you're looking for. You're only looking to add data for an active listing so that someone can look at what the current competition is. So you can come in here and change it there, or you come down here and click on sold, and it removes that bar from the graph. So highly customizable. This is the broadest spectrum that we can get within the MLS. This is just your general market data. Every active residential listing is feeding into this. Yes.
In our market summary and, all that data that comes out now, how in this would you go ahead and separate the light?
I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. And we'll do that one specifically since that's the question. So the question was, how do we separate out the lake from individual data somewhere else? We'll go ahead and do that. Within this one, you have your number of listing, your list prices, absorption rate. It's pretty much everything that Curtis had gone through in table form. It's charts at the top. If you scroll down far enough, there it is. It gives you the table data. So you can just move it however you prefer to do it. Each one of these is individually exportable, meaning you can take it out, put it into like a PDF presentation, however you want. It is very, very helpful to have a good idea of the market information you're looking for prior to going into. If you're looking for specifically the lake, you can come up here and hit the customize, new location. And just, sorry, I don't know a zip code at the lake specifically, so I'm going to punch in 24018. What's that?
24121.
24121. Okay. So I just punched in 24121. Note that it says new location. The reason I say that, bring that up specifically, is this is not like a generalized field search within MLS. This is specifically location. So you can do things like school districts, major area like Southwest County or Bedford County, or whichever searchable zone and major area you can do. You also can do.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can you draw an area?
Not right here. Not in this particular location, but you can through like a quick search
Okay.
or something like that. The question was, can you draw an area that you want to see on here? And this is not the knife to get into that, so to speak. You can do it through a quick search.
Can you continue zip codes by comma?
You can. So you just come in here 24018, 24121.
That's not the way.
I'm just throwing two of them up there for you. So you can come back in and change them. You can change the report dates based upon however you want it to look. So let's just go March of 2023. This is also where you would be able to change it from residential to land. So it's similar to how the fields are then populatable from your MLS quick search. Then you just hit the search button and it's going to populate it based upon what you punched in. Couple things to note. This is just kind of more in Curtis's field of this. One of the things that's really neat to watch about this, I'm going to switch back to just the generalized data. Let's see here. I'm going to turn off the filters. All right. So a lot of things you can do on your own for analysis of these things. You can watch a lot of different trends relative to the market on the whole. So cumulative days on market versus time of year active on market. It's up to you to kind of figure out the data and how you want to present it. Like a good example is, how does the active inventory change throughout the year relative to solds and pendings? Or for that matter, the days on market versus the active inventory. So you can tell when an inventory is spiking. Does anybody know what month we typically, we being the Roanoke Valley Association of Realtors, what month we typically bottom out in active inventory? Anybody want to take a stab at that?
January.
January, good guess. November.
The lakes in about November, December.
Typically it bottoms out in February. This year it bottomed out in late December. Why? I don't know. Probably around interest rates or something like that. I was looking through getting prepared for this and realized it. So I'll probably use that at some point. But okay, so quickly, just to run through the other options here. You can hit the export button. This is how you take it from Flex in this presentable form, get it into another form, whether you want to put it into a PDF or a presentation, a PowerPoint, however you want to do it. You can email it, whatever you want to do. You can download all the data or export the data that's displayed on the page, meaning just what's on the screen, it will pop out. You can also email this data and you can print it. So I'll show you one thing real quick on the print. When you come into the print, it's going to print all the graphs you want to see, and it's going to format it to the page, whatever the medium you're trying to do. If you're trying to print to an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, it's going to automatically do that. So you can have, in a matter of seconds, a presentable form in digital or in print with any type of market data. Literally from start to finish, you're 15 or 20 seconds, as long as you know going in what you want to see. Any questions on that? I'll move to the next category if that's okay. So again, just to take you back, to show you in case you're coming in here after the fact with your computer, I went back to menu, down to statistics, the market trends. This is where we get a little bit deeper dive into some of the specifics. Takes a minute to generate the reports. This is from April 2021 to March 2023. It automatically defaults to right at 2 years of comparison data. So this is the same market data until I filter it of how to get this is the generic everything residential within the RVAR. When you look at the top of this graph, filters, property type residential. So that's the same as going in to your quick search and not hitting a thing, show me the listings. So if you want to filter it down, all you do is hit filter. It'll pop up and allow you to do residential, land, farm, multifamily, commercial. You can run through all those. Once you've done a search once, if you're Water's Edge, for example, all the time, and you're constantly doing things in there, we'll just save Water's Edge. And then it makes it just that much easier to go in there and get the information you want. Same as before, you can also add in graphs that you want to see, the sold volume, new volume, active volume, anything you want to do. Across the top is your toolbar once again. So if you notice the trends within Flex, they try to make things that relate to each other always on a bar at the top, somewhat relatable to like the universal search bar or the top of your graph here. So it's kind of clued into the same cues wherever you go. Okay, so days on market, you can get any of these. And again, same as before, export, print, email, whichever you'd like to do. I can't see it. I need to move something real quick. On my screen, sorry, I had to move the Zoom link out of the way. You can get your table data down here at the bottom as well, should you want to import it into, you know, a spreadsheet or something like that. Any questions about that? Here's where we go even more to, wait a minute, I'm sorry. It's the same one I just did. We go a little bit deeper dive as you further you go down your market trends and graphs. This is where you can go internally in and pull up specific information of year by year comparison. So Curtis was doing his presentation with 2014 versus 2023. It's a little bit harder. For whatever reason, there is a cutoff. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but you can only go so far back and compare right now. But you can go through here and create individual market analysis reports for, this is just an example of it. And this is with a screenshot that Curtis had exported, or a different version of a screenshot that Curtis had exported, should you want to drop it into a presentation. Okay, there's a lot of information in here that you can pull. This again is just generalized data. If you want to do a more specific information about 24018 or whatever zip code, you just filter them down from that generalized page.
Where was that located?
I'll show you.
At the top of that?
It was, so you go in here, click on filters, residential, then we're going to filter it. So we'll do, let's just say pending Roanoke County and Southwest Roanoke County, just for an example. Click next. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I needed to not do pending. That's my fault.
Also,
Everything's gone.
well, we only have 8 on both sides. Oh, that's the right one.
Oh, I clicked something wrong. It is, I have something on my search that's throwing it off. I apologize for that. There it is. So this shows you by year over that 2-year period of what the active inventory's been, individual number of listings and where they have come in. And again, this is that same spot where you can punch in an individual neighborhood, whatever location key you want to use. Okay. For what it's worth, you should be able to see this is where you can look up rosters, you can look up your individual production, get some internal data on some of your own statistics, should you want to throw that in there. I have a test account up here right now. There's no data, like there's no listings for this agent, so I can't show you that. But if you want to go in there, you go to my production, or you can go to inventory and production, either one to get some data. Okay. Any questions on that otherwise? Realtor man. Yeah, I need to switch real quick. I'm gonna let you in and show you some internal data just to make sure once you have the list, you've gotten it on the market, you have gotten it on the market, you're getting past the first 2 weekends, it hasn't sold, and you are looking for some internal data of what you are doing to try to talk to your seller, maybe about a price reduction, maybe just keep them up to date, whatever it may be. This is one of my listings. I'm going to show you just the information on it. Who knows how to get to the individual information about one of their listings and show the MLS data? Does anybody get there? A few people? We've highlighted this before in a previous class, but if you come over here, click on your actual listing, go to the main page, click the arrow down right here beside the MLS number, go to listing activity. So this one was listed, it's the most recent period. You can change that date. If it was listed prior to that, you can go in and change the dates. And it will show you exactly all the information. Just to go quickly through that, where people are viewing this listing, Flex MLS would be any other real estate agent or in theory an appraiser, anybody that's viewed the listing on the MLS, been viewed 1,332 times. Flex MLS IDX is when it goes through the Internet Data Exchange websites. So that's a third party coming out, like you can set up your own agent website and have people look through it. Flex MLS email, so like 242 times an agent has emailed this out to someone, client or whoever to talk about. And then Flex MLS portal is how many times within a portal. So another agent has a buyer set up through a portal, and that's 63 times that they viewed the listing on that. Once you get into this, you realize some trends, like portals aren't used that much for whatever reason. There's not that many views ever in portals. And the Flex MLS IDX number grows somewhat, but the Flex MLS number gets really big really quickly, especially right now. There's a lot of activity on the MLS. There's a few charts and whatnot here. This is people that have rated the listing, so you have to check and see how many ratings you've had on it. Typically, it's not a great way of looking at it, just because people don't use the rating system within the MLS. So that would be in a portal or something along those lines. If someone hits a star button, 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, if you've seen those, that would be how you get a rating on it. Actions people took on the listing, they shared it 15 times in the last 90 days. Showing request, I don't think that button ever really gets used much, but technically through a portal, you can say, I'd like to set up an appointment to see this. These are the most important ones, in my opinion, of people who saved this listing and also people who viewed this listing, because this is your direct demographic showing who's looking at my listing. So it's purest form of, am I getting it in front of the right people? Are they looking at the same information that they should be? So this listing's in Botetourt County. It's got 10 acres. It's right near the James River. It's an Airbnb. If anybody wants to rent it this weekend, I think it's open. But what I'm more concerned with is it in the same price range? These are your top 10. They're ordered by the total number of who's looked at them and how many times it's been viewed. So our biggest competition thus far has been 2457 Gravel Hill, which matches up. That's an older house. This particular listing is an older house. It kind of got that country cottage look. It's near some water. So there's a lot of similarities. It's $350,000. This listing's $450,000. So it's close enough. I'm okay with that. But you can look down through here and it's not going to skew the information like some of your public information or public websites are going to do. So that is available on every listing that you have. Typically, it takes a little while for the statistics to build up so that you really see something that's marked. Like a day or two on the market, everybody's going to look at it, and it doesn't give you a whole lot of information. Everybody realize and see how to get there to look at the individual listings so you can use them. You can print these, although it's a little bit more difficult to do. You just have to individually print the page or do a screenshot of it so you can give it to a seller. Any questions at all? That was everything I had for you. Anybody has any questions for Curtis? I'm sure he's here to help answer anything. Anybody in Zoom land have any questions or want me to go back through anything?
I don't have any Zoom questions.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate everybody coming out. Thanks for attending the class.